Good morning, nerds. It is Tom, the very lowest of men of 6 plus plus here, and I am at the start of an Age of Sigmar adventure. This is a bit of a side project for me. Obviously, those that know me know I do a lot of 40k and have been very heavily involved in competitive 40k for the last couple of years. And for reasons we'll get into, I want to start a couple of new systems this year as my sort of downtime and more casual play and pick up play. But also to start learning and understanding a new system as well. And Age of Sigmar is the one that I've had an eye on for a long time. Really excited to do this. As the title, The Great Plan, alludes to, I've picked my army. I know what I'm going to be doing for it. And I want to document that adventure as a 40k nerd with quite a lot of experience in competing in 40k, takes on a whole new system and starts to figure out how a new game works. I know that Age of Sigmar is currently in its index stage, so who knows what's going on out there. What I've tried to do is avoid soaking up any outside knowledge on the meta or the game at the start. I want to discover this all firsthand, and I want to document it all for you. So I'm not going to be using guides or other media to learn the game. I'm just going to be leaning on my experience from having played it a few times in previous editions and my experience of game systems more broadly to try and figure out a new army and figure out a new system and do it all in real time with you guys hopefully mocking me as I as I get to grips with it as well. So let's get into it. I mean, the overall goal with AoS for me and Age of Sigmar is to make some friends. I've just moved back down south. I'm between roles and between living situations, so I'm back down south with family for the time being. And one of the things I really like using wargaming to do is make new connections, make new friends, and get out in whatever environment I'm in. This is how I met all of my 6 plus plus teammates in sort of central UK. It's how I met a bunch of people in Cambridgeshire when I was working there. And so my goal is to meet some fellow nerds, get out there and have some fun. And I've been looking up a little bit in terms of the gaming scene down south. I got some advice from people in the community. And actually, there's a few clubs in Winchester, Southampton, Portsmouth, in and around where I live. So I'm looking forward to seeing what those are like. I've been to one or two of them in the past for 40k events, but I'm looking forward to using them as more of a sort of socializing and club scene as well. I'm going to learn a new system. The reality is I play 40k a lot and play it to a very high level now, which means that you're taking it very seriously. It's more like a sport than a game a lot of the time. And I think actually what I want to do with other systems at the moment is have them for fun and relax and not take them as seriously. Obviously, I'll still get into it and I'll still compete, but I want to take it a little bit more at my own pace and mostly do it for the hobby fun and the game fun and the experience as well. And I will, to motivate myself, get a couple of small events booked in. I think my schedule is going to be very busy as far as big GTs go for the next few months. But what I am not currently booked in for are those little one-dayers, RTTs, those sorts of things. And we've got some Middle Earth plans for later in the year. But in the meantime, I want to motivate myself to get things painted and done and learn the game by going out to one or two one-day events and starting to learn Age of Sigmar that way as well. So I had to choose a faction to double down on. I think if you're going to do this properly, it makes sense to pick one army to really spend some time with for a few months and get a sense of how they work and learn the game and learn the other factions through that mirror. And I have chosen the Seraphon, the Lizardmen. Now, there's a number of reasons for this. The main thing is emotional. When I first started collecting Warhammer of all kinds when I was a kid, I had Salamanders, Space Marines, and I had Lizardmen. Those were the two armies that I built and painted. Not much, just a few models of each. I never played. I mostly played Middle Earth as a kid. I didn't ever play the other two systems, really. But I remember having the old Saurus Warriors and an old Metal Salamander with some skink handlers, these sorts of things as a kid. And so I was very attached to the Lizardmen lore. I've enjoyed whenever I play the computer games of Total War, Warhammer. I've played Lizardmen in that most of the time. I really enjoy them. And I have tried in several editions of Age of Sigmar to start collecting Seraphon. So I started in 2nd edition and I gave up pretty quickly because I just didn't have the time and headspace for it at the time. And didn't have the money because I was still relatively new in work. So I couldn't really afford to be running AoS at the same time as 40k. So unfortunately, I sold that. And then in 3rd edition, I started dipping a toe in and got a bunch of models bought for me by friends for my birthday, which is fantastic. And also I've gradually, they're one of those armies that whenever I've won prize money at events, I've stashed away models from Seraphon, knowing I'd do them one day. So I've got a few bits of models stashed away from various event wins in the past as well. but I didn't get the project off the ground properly. I painted one or two models, but didn't find the time to actually play it fully. And Seraphon are one of those armies where sometimes they're a bit too good in the game as well, and at times that kind of put me off them as well. But my understanding is that at the moment, with the index world of AoS, a good friend assures me they're not broken, so I should be able to play them and have a good time in a casual sense. And so let's see if they're right or whether this army is too good. I'm intrigued. What I like about them in a general sense for Age of Sigmar is that they are a dynamic, sort of good at everything kind of army. They have some shooting, they have some combat, they've got big monsters, they've got little guys, they've got plenty of good casters and characters, big dinosaurs and little tiny ones. And obviously the model range, since they updated it in third edition, is just sensational. Right, everything in it looks incredible. I've got some pictures of some of the new ones that I've been painting. I've been things like the Croxigore, absolutely stunning models, and there's a few I haven't collected yet or haven't started building yet that I'm really excited to do. And what I like about it, with from a painting perspective, is they're one of those armies where you can paint everything a little bit different. You don't have to have a uniform scheme. Obviously, I'll have things like my Saurus and my Skinks looking the same, but the big lizards can look like anything you want. And that, from a painting and hobby standpoint, I'm trying to do this as a sort of palette cleanser and to get excited about hobby again as well, as much as anything. I think having that massive variety of each time you do a model, you can do something completely different. No two big dinosaurs have to look the same. You don't have to use the same color palette. I think that really, really appeals to me. And I think also they really suit the kind of under dry brushing, slap chopping style of painting, which is something I've been doing a lot more in recent times. I'm not a particularly good painter. I really enjoy it. But I think a scheme where you can get a really nice contrast style scheme going very quickly and effectively is great for motivation and great to really inspire you as well. So I've got some pictures which I'll share, and you guys can let me know what you think. But I'm really enjoying the hobby aspect for these guys as well. And finally, obviously, they are lizards riding dinosaurs. No excuses. That's just cool. Extremely, extremely cool. And some of the new models, things like the Agrodons and the Raptidons, for example, look really, really cool in that sense as well. So I have a broad sense of how AoS plays. I've played it before. I know you've got objectives. I know you've got battle tactics. I know there's sort of ebb and flow in the mid board a lot of the time in the game. And you've obviously got your endless spells and the kind of casting and dispel dimensions about that. Now, I've not looked in depth into how AoS 4 has changed it, although I understand there's quite a lot of continuity. And I know that they've brought the kind of control score over from in the style of OC from 40k. But what I have done is had a read through the Seraphon Index, again, without a wider sense of the meta, but with my sort of rules hat on, trying to look at, well, what looks effective and what looks like the way this army wants to play. And I'm sharing some thoughts with you. I'm very curious for you, very experienced AoS heads out there. How close am I? Am I on the money with this, or have I got a way to go before I figure out what's going on? But at a first glance, looking at this and certainly comparing it to Seraphon rule sets I have read in the past, I think it's not as much of a magical damage dealing army as it previously was. It looks like magical damage has been toned down. It can still do it, but it's actually a lot more in terms of buffing and debuffing through its magical powers rather than damage. Obviously, endless spells may complicate that, and that's where my knowledge is missing. So if there's endless spells I need to be looking at, let me know. So it's not quite the same like magical castle feel that it previously had, although there will definitely be plenty of casters running around, and things like the Slan or even Lord Croak look very good. I think Lord Croak probably a bit expensive for me as a start point, but I'll definitely try using him later. What I am struck by looking at this index, though, is that it is incredibly fast. I think you can build phenomenally fast, punchy armies with this, where you've got big dinosaurs or cavalry that can have massive boosts to their movement. There are multiple ways to stack movement boosts. There is advance and charge in one of the magic spells, which means that stuff can be covering incredible distances on the board. And that, anyone who knows me knows, I like going fast and hitting things. That's how I like to play 40k, especially. So that's massively exciting to me. I'm smelling very powerful, fast cavalry builds in here, but also very powerful, fast monsters if you want to play that way as well. And I think sort of getting really quick, fast, hard-hitting units into your list feels like a very effective way to play. It also feels like it wants you, I suspect, to take a Slan, because the Slan has got this 4-up recursion of units, bringing units back at their half their previous strength. And I think, obviously, in an army that wants to bring quite a lot of good infantry and cavalry, I think being able to just bring those back and recycle them via a caster who's already very, very good, and the Slan looks really good for a bunch of other reasons as well. This feels like a logical way to build the army at this stage. I played Gravelords in AoS 3, and I remember that building around things coming back was a really powerful way to play it. And so I think Lizardmen probably and Seraphon probably do want to have access to that bringing back of units, because although I'm looking at some very quick units that can deal damage, a lot of them aren't that tough in terms of their actual saves. The actual durability of the units isn't quite as high as their reach and their damage, so perhaps being able to bring them back after they've gone in and died feels like a logical way to play to me. Finally, I think the Great Plan buffs offer a lot of tactical flexibility and mini games in their own right. I really like +2 movement. Who wouldn't? That looks bonkers. It looks like you can do some really fun things with the exploding hits on the cavalry, on the companions, and the monsters having the extra hits from their attacks. Plus, extra casting doesn't necessarily look essential to me, but maybe on a really magic heavy build you'd want it. And then the rend thing in your territory. This is where my experience shows. I don't know how much of the game is played in your territory, so I need to see the extent to which the rend matters before I'd build around that. But I think you've got options there. You've got a defensive durability plan. You've got really fast offense. And what I like about it is that as I learn other armies and matchups in the game, I feel like I'm going to be able to learn how to play what I pick at the start, what I try to unlock in the mid game. And I really like that flexibility tactically. That massively appeals to me. Anything that gives me agency in the game feels really good. So I think that's a really fun reimagining of their Great Plan dynamics, and I'm looking forward to talking about that in a subsequent video. So as far as the units go, the ones that jumped out at me at first read, obviously, as we've talked about, the Slan Starmaster. So you've got a guy that brings back your units. He can dispel from all over the board. He's got lots of casts. He's got boosts to casting, and he can use skink wizards around the board as his eyes to project his powers as well. So as a sort of home defense guarding piece, sitting at the back, perhaps with some bodyguards, shooting out his magic, dominating the board, presumably being very good at endless spells as well, but that's an area I need to read up on. I think the Slan just feels like a no-brainer. I've got some fun ideas for my Slan. I want to paint him yellow and black, have a really poisonous-looking Slan to complement some of the other schemes I've got going on. But I think the Slan feels like one I definitely need to be building up and painting. He's next on my list. Then we've got Agrodon Lancers. These just look great. Quick, hard-hitting cavalry, lots of wounds, big slab of attacks. Go very fast, very, very punchy. I think for running the flanks and breaking your enemy on the sides, Agrodon Lancers feel really, really logical. The other unit I really like the look of is Croxigor, particularly the War-spawned Croxigor, where they've got great damage, ways to boost it if they've got skinks nearby, and there's a couple of skink units which we'll talk about that I think are definitely worth having. They've also got a lot of wounds, so I think Croxigor feel like a good central counter-attacking unit. If they try and push centrally, you can unleash the Croxigor, get them stuck in, do a load of damage, and absorb quite a lot of damage as well. I like the look of Croxigor. I don't really just want to spam any one unit. I'm trying to build up blocks of different options as I start collecting and painting, and I like what Croxigor offer you as a central threat, and actually still quite quick. 7 move with the buff from the Great Plan if you run them that way. Potential to boost that up even more. I think this whole army is a lot quicker than you think it's going to be if you let it be. Another unit I'm very impressed with, having seen the points in the Age of Sigmar app, is the Raptordon Lancers. I think these are really nice as a sort of support piece. They're cheap, they're quick, very quick, and they've got plenty of wounds and plenty of output, I think, for the points. If you compare, they're almost half the cost of Agrodons. I actually think they look really effective in terms of their output vis-a-vis the other things in this index. I think there's potential for buddying them up with the other Raptordons that have the throwing weapons, but actually I think probably just Lancers look fun as a melee option, and they can obviously buddy up with the Croxigor to give the Warspawn more damage, which I like. And they're cheap enough that they could be doing your scoring for your battle tactics and things without feeling like you're giving away your heavy hitters as well. So I like the play with the Raptordon Lancers a lot. I think I'm going to have fun with those. Also think the models are gorgeous. And then finally, the skink star priest, so the toilet skink. I built this model ages ago because I loved it. I fell in love with it at the Warfest event up in Manchester, and I thought this just is so cool. This little guy on his little mini slan throne. So he's going to be. I'm going to paint him and my slan at the same time and have them have similar thrones, but obviously very different looks on the models. And I think the Star Priest just looks good as a support caster, as like a second or third hero, because obviously you have your heroes to unlock your detachments in Age of Sigmar. And I really like him because he's got multiple casts. I think he's good eyes for your slan, but also his powers are very good. Like he's got a remove ward saves power that feels very, very strong. Imagine being able to do that in 40k. Very, very powerful. I think that is just going to be useful for getting rid of the durability on certain types of enemy units. But then he can also hand out a 5-up ward save to several units in the mid to late game if you use that ability patiently. Which, you know, if we're talking about Croxigor and Agrodons and these big, durable brick units that we've got, you know, if you're popping that in round 3 on a couple of your big brick units, you know, I think that gives them massive staying power. So he looks really, really good to me as well, and he's quite cheap as well for getting another character in. Those were the 5. If I was picking 5 standouts at the very start, those are the ones that jumped out at me like, wow, I really like the look of those. Next up, we've got my sleeper picks. So these are ones that I looked at that I think potentially don't add up quite as much as some of the others, but I will definitely play them. I'm saying my goal with this is to play whatever I want. I'm not going to be corralled into just picking the optimal units all the time because I can do that in 40k if I want to do that. I don't need to play Age of Sigmar to be min-maxing. And so the ones I like the look of, skinks. Now, this is partly because I love the skink models, but I think the skinks have a unique role in the army as they are your screen of idiots, right? It's 10 cheaper wounds, throw them out in front of stuff, get in the way, and particularly because they've got the ability to roll 2 dice for their reactive move, if you use that, you can use them to get in the way of enemy cavalry, block enemy charges, you can bait charges and then run away. I think they're quite a flexible unit in tandem with your other heavy hitters. I like the idea of them as a screen in front of, say, Croxigor or Agrodons. If your opponent wants to connect into the Agrodons first, you're actually pushing up Skink in the way, spreading out, covering in front of them. I don't think it works in all matchups because they will just get gunned down into some armies. But I really like their potential as a blocking piece and screening piece. I think at 100 points, they're probably too expensive. I think that's a lot of points for 10 idiots. But I would, and I think, I imagine they might go down in the future. But I think as a tool, I really, really like them. Then we've got the Oracle on Troglodon. I painted this model ages ago. This is the only model I had already done. So he's not in my previews today. But I really like the stodginess of this unit. There are combos to have him healing an awful lot, which we'll get into when I unpack the index in more detail in the future. He's a big, stodgy unit. He reduces enemy control score. He's not bad at fighting or shooting himself. And again, he's more eyes for your slan and your magic as well. So I really like the Oracle. I think he's a really cool unit. The Bastiladon. This is a funny one. I think Bastiladon offer you something very different. Looking at the saves in the index, this is the one that's got a 2-up save, right? And you've got ways to make saves even better in AoS. So I think the 2-up save just gives you a tar pit that you can jam in, tie something up, and unless they have very good rend stacking, will just stay there and survive for longer. So I really, really like that. And it's obviously you can build it with the gun on the sort of the sun laser, but you can also build it with the box of snakes, which is what I originally looked to build mine with. I've got both. And I think actually there's some nice mortal wound spill potential, which again, we'll talk about combos later on, but in future episodes. But I think there's some mortal wound sprinkling effects you can stack in with different detachments or different sort of army choices. And I think the Bastiladon adding to that in several ways is very positive if you want to have a build that throws out a lot of mortal wounds for opponents that get up close, helps them get through those armored targets. So I think it's expensive. Bastiladon is a lot of points, but that 2-up save, rend reducing combination that you can get going, I think that's really nice. I really, really like that, and I can see the use for one on a flank, again, accompanying one of the other heavy-hitting units I've already talked about as a way of tying the opponent up and giving them something that's going to keep them busy unless they start trying to chip away at it. Finally, my shout-out pick, I like Ripperdactyl Riders. I think at 120 points, I think they're cheap. They're very quick. Again, 14-inch move before you start doing all the nonsense you can do in here and fly. I like the idea of Ripidactyl riders as a threat to be jumping over the enemy, getting in behind, causing all sorts of mischief, and punishing their cheaper utility units, clearing screens, those kinds of things, scoring as well, potentially again, because they've got the incredible reach. And their damage isn't terrible, and they've got the fun thing with the block frog where you put the toad on an enemy unit and you get more attacks against it. And again, they synergize with some of the buffs to companions in some of the other sort of ways of layering the different rules as well. So I quite enjoy Ripidactyls, and they feel like one of those units. If you have leftover points and you're just a little bit short, you can't get more like Raptidons in. I think Ripidactyls would be my pick. And I just love the models. I've never seen them be good in Age of Sigmar before, and I think they look solid at their points cost. So I'm definitely going to build up some Ripidactyls to try it as well. That's my picks. Let me know how wrong I am. I'm really excited to hear, and I can imagine. As I say, I'm not looking at this purely from a min max build. I always want to take a mix of tools in there, but those are the ones that jumped out at me at a first read. So here's some early painting. I want to show this off because this is a hobby project for me as much as anything else. So we've got a little skink warrior there. And I'm using sort of contrast over slap chop style dry brushing underneath for these. And I've gone with nice orange shields using Griffhound orange, and then a mix of different blues for the skin, and also Eldari Emerald for the scales on the back. I want to go for a more sort of bluey green scales. Really enjoying the way they're coming out. Nice, simple, quick to do scheme. And I've got my Croxigor there. The goal with the Croxigor, I wanted them to have, I don't know if any dinosaur fans, whenever they portray Ceratosaurus, the dinosaur Ceratosaurus in film and TV, for some reason it always has a red head. I don't know why. I don't know what scientific basis there is for that, but it always has a sort of red lizard type head and then different patterning on the back. That's always stayed with me, and I've always wanted to do some dinosaurs with that in my Seraphon army. So I've decided my Croxigor Warspawn, they're going to be my Ceratosaurs. They're going to have red crocodile heads. And then I've gone for a more Rakarth flesh style underbelly and very striking Eldari Emerald scales as well. I'm really, really enjoying doing these, and the sort of slap chop method. It really helps someone like me who's not a natural painter get a nice, crisp looking finish really quickly. So really, really happy with these. Also, we have my Bastiladon. So gone for corn red on the scales, nice bright vivid greens for the sun laser, and then the skinks as well. And I just think the Bastiladon is such a cool model. I'm already thinking about what I'll do for my second one. I don't want them to be the same, but I'm going to keep adding the big dinosaurs gradually as well. And we've got my spawn of Chotek there. So this is the replacement of the old Salamander. So this one, I'm a bit sad. In the game, he looks a bit rubbish because he's got one shot with his good weapon hitting on a 4. That to me feels like a world of disappointment waiting to happen, but I'm absolutely going to run one anyway because he's got a Ren stacking ability if he hits and does damage. And I think he's quite a fun little shooty unit to have guarding your sort of defensive lines. Him and the Bastiladon actually probably working as a tag team to just throw damage out in one place. And we'll see how effective that proves in practice. But most importantly, look at him. He's just a happy little guy. And I've gone for that Doomfire Magenta on his fins. And I've actually, his little skink handlers, I've got Doomfire Magenta on the feathers. One of them's got feathers on his back. So I've done it as if he's copying the salamander. He wants to look like it. So he's dressed himself up with the same colours on his feathers on his back as well. So I love that model. Just looks really, really cute and happy to me. So that's my early painting. I'm going to get on the list. I've got to do a Slan. It's pretty clear I'm going to want some Agridon. So I think that's what I'll be painting next. So hopefully in my next update, I can show you that as well. So how am I going to learn AoS 4 is the next question. Well, I reached out as soon as I moved my stuff back home. I reached out to people online through our 6++ Discord, on Facebook, and a couple of clubs I'd played at with 40k before, and started trying to find AoS people to play the game with. So I've got a few little games booked in. I've got a very relaxed learner pickup game, 1k game at Southampton Stronghold soon, which is going to be Lizards versus Stormcast, the Space Marines. It's always the Space Marines, isn't it? I've got a 2k game at Hampshire Hammerers planned against Gloomspike Gits, where I'm aiming to have my 2k army built up. The nice thing with the Seraphon is they're quite elite, so I feel like I can build up a 2k army pretty quickly and then obviously refine it and improve it over time. And then there's an October game day in Bedfordshire where I'm going to play a lot of my old Warhamstead local friends and teammates there. And then I've booked an event in November, a one-day RTT in Southampton, And this is my motivator, right? I always need to have an end goal in mind. I think November, that's still a month and a bit away. That gives me enough time to finish the army and finish the project, ready to go and play some competitive games. And I've obviously got the sort of the new mission pack for this season of AoS, and I'm really looking forward to learning it. But also a shout out, yeah, any of our 6++ guys, if you're in the Discord in the community, hit me up, drop me a message. I'd love to play it on TTS as well. Play a little bit, just start figuring the game out. I'm not going to be TTSing with it much, but at this stage where it's all brand new, very happy to try it and see how it plays and just start learning some missions and have a laugh with it as well. I cannot promise a serious list, but I can promise a good time. Okie dokie. And then the only other thing to give on, so with this in general, I'm starting from a start point of I just want to build up and paint the models I've already got for Age of Sigmar at the moment. But I am going to keep an eye on future purchases. So I think I might allow myself like 1 or 2 new things every month from October, because I'm hoping I'll have a lot of what I've already got done by then. And I'm curious what you guys in the chat think. These are some of the options. These are things I don't currently have. And we've got the Astrolith Banner Bearer, Scar Veteran on Agrodon, some reinforcements for my Croxagore. I've only got 3, and I can see how you might want a big brick of 6. Some Hunters of Huanchi, the little chameleon skinks, or a Stegodon. What do you guys think? What should I add next? What should my October purchase be, and why? Let me know in the chat. I'm very curious. There's obviously reasons you would want all of those different things, but I'm happy to take it in a number of directions. So I'm going to get you in the chat's opinion. Pipe up and let me know. And you can maybe decide what it is I add in October. That, guys, is the end of part 1 of the Great Plan. I'll be in touch when I've played a few games. I'll be in touch when I've painted some new stuff to show you. In the meantime, please do hit that like and subscribe. Please do leave comments. Let me know. Did you enjoy this? Does this work as a format? And is there anything you'd like to see from me in the future? Anything else I can do? Obviously, I'll start figuring out how to play Seraphon. I can share some guides on that. I'll start figuring out how to play AoS 4. I can share some guides on that. And I'll keep doing, game reports and hobby reports as I go as well. But can make it whatever you want, really. Very flexible. I just want to have fun with it. The goal with this one is to have a good time, meet new people, and that's what we're going to do. But do come and join the 6++ Discord. Come and get involved. We've got a little AoS section. I'd love to see it grow over AoS 4th edition. I'd love to see more people involved. And I think we're going to be trying to grow up the other game systems for us this year and really expand. So come and get involved. As ever, if you'd like to support us online by becoming a YouTube member, you can do that. And that helps us to do more wonderful content as well. And if you do become a YouTube member because you want more AoS, let us know. Because then I can go to Chris and say, look, Chris, the people want AoS. We're going to do more AoS, and I can push more of that through. So if you start signing up as members and letting us know, I'm here for some AoS content, we can really start to ramp that up. We've got several AoS players in the team. We're more than happy to start making things, potentially bat reports as well, get some game reports in, all sorts of stuff we can do down the line. Thanks so much for listening. It's been really fun. I'm so excited for this project. I cannot stress. Lowest of Men out. I will see you all again next time. Bye-bye.